Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming back to my YouTube channel. I've been doing lives for the last 2 weeks, which I've really enjoyed. But for this particular conversation, when we're talking about love in the month of February, I wanted to take some time out to talk about marriage and money. Marriage and money. So I know not everybody's married, absolutely. You may have a partner, you may have completely different setups when it comes to marriage, but I want to talk to you about marriage and money today. Now, I am not perfect when it comes to this, but I have been married for a few decades, just a few decades. That might tell you how old I am, but it doesn't matter. The most important thing for you to understand is that I have been married for a few decades, and I've been through multiple iterations of how we handle our money. So today I just want to talk about how we've gone through the process of handling money and give some suggestions to everyone about how you might be able to handle money if it works for you. And if you have ideas, please feel free to put them in the comments below and I will answer them as well. So let's dig in. The first thing I wanted to talk about is this. Why is it important to talk to your partner about money? Why is it important to talk to your partner about money? Well, the first thing is that money is very important to most people, right? Why? Because it's the fruit of your labor. You go to work, you spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day at work, 12 hours a day to be able to get an income. All right. Now, if you're in the same space as your partner, husband, wife, etc., and you're not talking about money, you got to ask yourself, okay, how are you handling it otherwise? Okay, there's a good chance that you might have completely separate bank accounts. One person handles this bill and one handles another, and that's just one way. But talking about it is important. So I would encourage you, first of all, that the moment your money begins to mix, to begin to talk to your partner. So if it means that you're paying the electric bill and he's paying the gas bill, fine, but have a conversation about it so that you can make sure that when your money mixes, it works well. Now, you might say, I'm not going to talk to my partner because he has a completely different attitude towards money than I do. Well, that's not necessarily the approach to take. We need to be able to understand how our partner thinks about money and therefore be in a position to be able to share with them maybe some ideas of how money can work. So different attitudes towards money is important to understand. So for example, I might be the spender in my relationship and my husband might be the saver in my relationship. That is actually true. What does that mean? It means that when we have conversations, we need to understand each other's perspective when it comes to money. So my husband will always say, let's make sure that this amount is set aside before we spend anything else. And I might say, how about we leave it till last? We spend everything else, then we save it till last. Well, that will be going against everything that I talk about in terms of paying yourself first. So our position is to make sure that we have decent conversations and come to a place of compromise in marriage and in money so that we're able to have a solid marriage. Okay, so that's a very important thing. Understand your partner's attitude towards money and target conversation around it. Okay, so the next thing is your partner a saver or a spender? Is your partner a saver or a spender? So very important to understand this. So like I said, for example, my husband is a saver. I tend to be a spender. And when we work together, we can actually have a good quality of life because we compromise and make sure that I don't spend too much and he ensures that we do save. So is your partner a saver or a spender? Okay. Do you make similar amounts of money? That's the next question that I want to ask you. If you do make similar amounts of money, how are you leveraging that income together? Now, why am I saying together? Well, because if your partner is making more or less money than you, doesn't mean that you have to do things so completely different. But the question is, how do you handle your money together? When you are looking at your budget, what part of the budget are you able to handle, maybe as the higher earner, compared to your partner, for example, who might be the lower earner or vice versa? How do you handle that? How do you leverage the money together, right? There's a saying, if you want to go far, go alone. If you want to go fast, go together. So make use of your combined budget to be able to go fast together. Okay, that's the one I would definitely recommend. Okay, so in marriage, the next thing I want to ask you is, do you set financial goals together? Do you set financial goals together? Got to ask the question, why? Because if one person's money is only going in a certain direction, so for example, as African people, think about this. We are easily by paying the black tax, like sending money to our family, easily able to get into situations where we have challenges or challenging discussions about money. Okay. But if you set financial goals together and you are able to say, okay, if I am going to send money, we decide on the amount that we send to our parents or our family, etc., and we stick to that. I remember once I was talking to my husband and his cousin asked for some money and he said something like, "I'm so sorry to bomb your budget." He knew exactly what was going on. He knew that he was bombing our budget. And my husband was able to say, "Hey, let's make this possible maybe next month when we can actually put it in the budget." But that's something we need to be able to do together to be able to ensure that our financial goals remain on track. Okay? So set financial goals together and stick to them. Even if someone in your family is asking, ask them to wait till next month if they need to. And if next month is not going to be possible, don't say next month. Say whenever you can do it. And if not, say I can't do it at this time. Okay, as people of color, especially African generation, people who are from Africa, it's a reality. We have that black tax where we have to be able to support our family. And many times we don't, but that's something that we need to make a decision about. And as best as possible, make choices that will not affect our relationship. What if your partner doesn't want to talk about money? So I've talked about the fact that it's a good place in your relationship to be able to have conversations about money. But if, for example, your partner doesn't want to talk about money, how can we get them to the table? Okay, how do we get our partners to the table to talk about money? Well, the first thing is we need to make it easier for them. Okay, if you are the spender or the slave, you're not coming to the table and saying, "Hey, you are overspending and I hate you for it." No, you're going to try to make it easier and give your ear. First and foremost, you want to listen, okay? When your partner is talking, when you're having this conversation about money, make it as easy as possible for the next person. I'm not saying let them get away with murder, but what I am saying is give them the opportunity to speak and hear them. It's not just about saying, "Okay, I'm listening." No, you want to make sure that you're hearing them and you're responding to them because you're working together as a team. Now, the next thing that I might recommend when you come to the table to talk to your partner is to decide to put your discretionary income aside as cash. That might be something that works for someone like me who is actually a spender. So if I have my discretionary income in cash, I will not overspend it. Why? Because once it's gone, it's gone. Okay, so that might be a great way that I can actually make a decision and we can work together to ensure that I don't overspend. And the third thing, when you're having a discussion with your partner about money, try not to play the blame game. Why am I saying that? Well, it's so easy to say, "You overspent, you saved too much, you sent too much for your family, you, etc." When we do that, we're accusing the next person, and that's not what we want to do. We want to be able to have a healthy conversation. So if there are situations that have not been finalized or situations that you're dissatisfied with, when you come to this conversation with your partner, you want to make sure that you're not pointing the finger and that you're not playing the blame game. Otherwise, they won't come to the table again. Nobody wants to be blamed for negative things. So what happens when there is a change of circumstances in marriage? Okay, think about it. John Smith is married and Mary is his wife, and John loses his job. What happens in those change of circumstances? It is so important that we prepare for those in advance. So for example, if you are a self-made woman, you never have to ask your husband for money, and there comes a time when you do. How are you going to approach that conversation? What kind of discussion would you have? So I remember when I had my last child, I had just lost my mom as well. So it was a really tough time for me. And I was supposed to return. In the States, you get back to work in 6 weeks. So at the end of the 6 weeks, I was talking to my husband and I said to him, "I really don't feel like I'm in a place where I can go back to work right now, especially having just lost my mom maybe a couple of months before." So it was very, very challenging for me, but having that conversation with him, and I was like, I need another few months off. So I was saying, I need 6 months off. And he said, "Well, I think you should take 12. That was probably the best conversation that we ever had financially, because I was able to say, okay, I don't have to worry about finances for the next 12 months. I was in that position that we were able to say, okay, I could take the time off, heal from my mother's loss, and spend some time with my newborn son. So in those situations, we didn't prepare for that, but because he was in a position to be able to earn and cover our expenses for that time. It helped me to be able to heal from my mom's loss and, of course, spend time with my newborn son. Now, not an easy situation, but he was able to do that. So it's an excellent environment to be able to prepare for that, to make sure that if those situations come up, you can have conversations about that. You can ask the next person. Having conversations about that in advance is helpful. Knowing what would happen if one person loses their income. Having discussions about that today when you're both earning is a great way to start, to prepare. So you're not saying, oh, I'm going to lose my job. What you are saying is, should, God forbid, that situation happen, I can now take the time and find a job again because we've discussed it. And I will be able to ask my spouse or my partner for X amount of money, knowing that we've talked about it in advance. Talking about things in advance is just so much better than talking about it when everything is on fire. So take the time to have those conversations now. The last thing I want to talk about is debt. Now, if you have debt and you haven't communicated that to your partner, I would encourage you to do so. So hiding debt from your partner is a challenge, because if situations arise and you're not able to pay those debts, that can be difficult and it could put both of your credit in the pond. So I want to encourage you, if you do have debt, first of all, I want to encourage you not to hide debt at all. Don't hide debt from your partner, but talk about it. And if you need to bring it to the table after it's been incurred, have that conversation and discuss how you plan to tackle it. Okay? But if you are in a position and you haven't had that conversation yet, I want to encourage you to think about it. Okay? You know your spouse better than I do, but I wouldn't recommend hiding debt. How you handle this is going to be yours because you know who you're dealing with, but just bear in mind, don't go into debt and hide about it in the future. Okay? Let's handle that up front and make sure that you manage your money effectively together. Remember, if you want to go far, you can go alone, but you want to go fast, you can go together. So topics that you can talk about with your spouse can be as follows. Like, what bills are your priorities? Have that conversation. Talk about which bills must be paid first. So for example, I would say, electricity and gas, super important. Those have to be paid. Okay? We don't have a car note, thank goodness, but after that, you want to pay the mortgage, or pay the mortgage first. How it is prioritized in your world together enables you to tackle those bills together, okay? So that's the first thing. Which bills come as first priority? What are your short and long-term goals together? For example, are you saving for retirement, or are you saving for a holiday, or do you need a new car? What are your financial goals together? How are you going to tackle those? And just ask open questions so you can have open discussions. Talk about whether you should be managing your money jointly or separately. This is very, very important. For example, we have bank accounts that are separate for our individual finances, and then we have joint bank accounts that we handle bills with, that we save in. So those are conversations that you want to have. How do you plan to handle your money together so that you're working on the same team? I'm not saying you have to have joint bank accounts for everything, but you want to have conversations about that so you know what steps you're taking. And last but not least, how do you split your bills and your savings? For example, some people might want to do the 30-30-10 rule, where you divide your savings up and your expenses up, etc., based on that information. But having a discussion, talking about how you want to split your savings and your expenses, etc., is worth having. Now, bear in mind, if you are the higher earner, you've got to be sensitive to the needs of another. For example, I know a couple who went based on percentages. So, for example, he might have been earning a lot of money and he decided that he would set aside 10% towards their savings, and she did the same. So it wasn't down to the fact that she couldn't meet the needs or couldn't make the kind of money he was making, and therefore it was not able to contribute the amount. When you put it based on percentages, it makes a lot more sense. That way, you're saving to retirement together, you're saving towards your holidays, or you're saving towards saving together based on percentages. And that's way it's fair. So just take that into consideration if that's something you want to do. Last but not least, as we wrap this up, I want to say communication is key when it comes to handling money together. Discussing how the money is going to be apportioned is a good thing. Using percentages and having open conversations, open questions where you're not playing the blame game is probably the best approach when it comes to marriage and money. Now, like I said, I love talking about marriage and money. I would love to have a conversation with you. Put it in the comments below. We can actually ask questions and answer questions and go through anything that you want to talk about when it comes to marriage and money. But most importantly, I encourage you to talk about money with your spouse. Make it something you do, even if it's a date night. Go to your local chippy and decide that today is the day that we go through our money. Okay, this is the day we talk about our finances, and it's okay to do that. But when you take it as something that is the equivalent to an argument, that's not how we want to handle it. Be peaceful about money, be understanding, and together we can go fast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I only ask 3 things of you: that you like this video, that you subscribe to my channel, and last but not least, that you share this video with someone who needs to understand how money and marriage works. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.